Welcome to the factory. I'm Malcolm.
Jourdan.
Brett.
And we are post-election now. Biden is the president-elect.
Oh, wait, what? I was dancing for Trump. No, okay.
And yeah, we're just talking. I think there's, I guess for at least half the country, there's a lot less anxiety now. Probably for more than half, I would say, is just, and then the other half is like, it's not real.
But I think it's gonna blow over. We went through that in 2016 for like a week or two. But I think really what's gonna happen is, the rhetoric out of the White House is gonna change, and so it won't be hate spewing all the time.
I think people are excited just to have politics be boring again.
I don't agree with that. It's never going to be boring.
I was going to say,
maybe
part of me will miss the entertainment of the Trump administration, as frightening as it could sometimes be to a certain extent. The court jesterhood.
He was an easy target.
Yeah, he was an easy target, and like sometimes the man just said funny shit.
He did.
Sometimes he was just a funny guy. Yeah.
My Trump impression is like, it's a hit with people now. That wouldn't be the case if he wasn't president.
Well,
but you can tell a lot of the anxiety and tension here is just gone now. Like, I feel so much better.
It's funny because Trump as a person, I don't think he's better off now than he was before he was president. Obviously not. Before he was president, I think he was the type of guy where, he was a celebrity. People didn't really pay attention. Some people watched The Apprentice, he was just that billionaire real estate guy that was on TV. And now he's like one of the most hated people worldwide.
Whether you agree or not, that is kind of the case.
It's rare to get that kind of attention.
There were people literally partying in the street
level attention.
And they weren't partying in the streets because they're so happy about Joe Biden. They were partying in the street because they want Donald Trump gone.
Yeah,
it was very much a ding dong, the witch is dead moment.
It was. It's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good way of putting it.
And hey, if you like the guy, it's fine. It's whatever it is. But like,
can we put some of your fears to rest, though, guys? Like, we're not going to turn this into some communist dictatorship. That's not what we want. We don't want to marginalize you. The last 4 years, at least for me, at least now we know what is upsetting you guys behind the scenes, and we can try to reach across the aisle. And I think that's what Joe Biden wants to do. He wants to try to bring us together. Well,
hopefully.
Whether he will or not is a different question.
It'll really depend. And there's also, he has the challenge of reaching across the aisle to Republicans, but he also has the challenge of a fractured Democratic Party that came together for this election because of who was in office. But you have a growing, very progressive branch of the Democratic Party that is, once, like, they came through for this, but once Biden is in office, they're not going to be nearly as cooperative as they were going up to this election,
And this is what I've been saying the whole time, which is step one, get Trump out of office. Step two, fix Biden.
Well, one thing to actually learn, I think, from the Trump administration is, say what you want about the man, he really united the Republican Party. Like if you look at the Republican Party under the Obama administration, you had the more fiscally conservative wing, you had the Tea Party wing, you had the neoconservative wing, you had, the Reagan era war on drugs.
Well, Tea Party was kind of an Obama era thing.
Sure, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then under Trump, all these different wings, these
But
fractions of the Republican
I
Party
think that makes sense, though, right?
completely came together.
Republicans know how to work together.
And maybe the Democrats can figure out a way to do the same thing. I mean,
I'm wary because I have to turn the eye on my own branch of the Democratic Party, on the progressives, and appreciate the fact that we have so many different viewpoints and different policy positions we're trying to push that we don't know what we want. And if we're going to effectively mount strategy that's going to work on a national stage, we need to get our shit together, man. And we need to form a working, sort of sub collective within the Democratic Party that knows what it's looking for and can push for that. Because I think, someone put it to me this way that I think was very apt, where they said progressives are very good at stumbling at the finish line. And it's because I think we should shoot ourselves a lot in the foot. We get so ideologically bound, which, look, I get it. We have our ideologies and that's important. But I think oftentimes we push those ideologies to the detriment of what can actually be accomplished.
Well, I think what the primary really showed anyway is that the United States of America is not ready for a hyper-progressive agenda. I mean, there were many progressive candidates on that stage, and the party ended up nominating Joe Biden, who, is the centrist left of the centrist left. So I really think that, the progressive wing would do best by compromising as much as they can with the centrist Democrats.
Well, here's my thoughts on that, because I think right now there were a lot of circumstantial things that kind of made that the case, right? If Biden had never, because originally Biden wasn't going to enter the race, if Biden hadn't entered the race, we could have been looking at Bernie Sanders as the Democrat.
Possibly.
And so I think it's kind of, a lot of us kind of thought, potentially correctly, that this time around there was a better chance of winning with Biden than Bernie. If you had gone back to 2016, I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Right? But I think they've spent the last 4 years painting this dystopian portrayal of democratic socialism, so that somebody like Bernie, if he got on the national stage, they'd just, cry bloody communist. So I don't think this was necessarily the right time. And that's unfortunate because, Bernie is my guy. I like him the most, I think, out of the candidates in general. And in that sense, I think it was a bit of a setback for the progressive side of the party. But if you take a look at the way the House seats went and what we won and lost, progressives were the ones who kept their seats, man. The ones who supported Medicare for all kept their seats. The ones who didn't lost them.
Sure, but the Democrats lost more seats overall, which I
No,
think
that's
is
what
kind
I'm
of telling.
saying. Of the Democrats is what I'm saying.
Of the Democrats. But I mean,
so let me clarify. Of the Democrats who lost their seats.
Yeah.
The ones who lost their seats, of the Democrats who had seats up.
Yeah.
That were in danger of being lost. The ones who kept them were all in support of Medicare for all, and
right.
Generally a little bit more progressive. The ones who lost them were more centrist and were not for Medicare for all.
Interesting, and I think that a lot of that could have to do with the demographics of it, like where these congressional districts were and the type of voters.
Or perhaps there's no correlation at all, or causation at all, and it's just a random correlation.
It very well could be, yeah.
I think what we learned from this election as a whole, I mean, the fact that there was such a high turnout is I think, a really good thing for the country, because we can really get more of a gauge of where everyone is. And I think that we have, as a country, we can officially say that we're really a purple country. Like, there's very few people that are so extreme to the right or left.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the reason why Joe Biden was the perfect candidate, because he was the only person that I think more moderate Republicans would say, I feel confident voting for this guy, to the point where I don't think he is going to ruin the country or change the country significantly to the other side. I think that I can still vote for him with confidence. Same with a lot of just centrists in general.
Now, here's what I want to point out about that, though. If we're looking at demographics, I think 4 to 8 years down the line, we're going to be seeing a very much farther left landscape, because it is very clear that the younger generations, in overwhelming numbers, vote left. And I think that's going to play out over the next couple sort of, political cycles. Maybe not the immediate next one, but perhaps the one after that or the one after that.
I think it really depends on if they turn out at all. Because I think, look, I also was for Bernie. I voted for Bernie in the primary. I went to a Bernie rally in downtown, and it was insane. There were so many people there. And if you were in that bubble, you'd be like, oh, this is where it's happening.
Well, I'm just talking about, percentages in voters who voted this year from younger generations, or polls among younger generations where they're asking about, about their political leanings and things like that.
I'm going to say young people tend to vote left in general, though, throughout the history of democracy.
You have to take a look at the history of what kinds of policies they were looking for at the time, right? Compare it to how we sort of spread information around nowadays. And I think we're going to see more solid constituencies in those sort of sub-demographics because of how information, it's no longer a situation of you only get it from one source and make your decision, right? And it is a very different landscape, I think, that lends in the long run to potentially more permanent voter base in that sense.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
I can see socially us becoming more and more liberal as time goes on. That's just the nature of things. I don't know if once...
That's what I mostly am talking about, social liberalism. I think economics is more up in the air until it becomes less like a philosophy and more like a science. I think economics is always going to be up in the air.
Well, one thing that I would like to talk about that is definitely, I think, agreeing with your point, is the fact that a number of states not only approved the legalization of marijuana, but approved the legalization of magic mushrooms.
Not us, though.
Not
We'll get there. We'll get there.
And we still have restrictions in the country on them.
Was it Oregon that decriminalized everything?
Yes, they decriminalized everything, and psilocybin therapy is now completely legal.
That's so smart. They're going to be so ahead of us on crime.
I mean, this was my personal biggest victory I've ever had in an election.
I mean, one libertarian worth their salt wouldn't be celebrating this as best as they possibly could.
I mean, I fully feel now like this is the biggest blow as a country that we've given to the war on drugs ever.
Absolutely.
Ever. I mean, and the war on drugs, I oppose on every level. So just dying a slow, painful death just makes me so happy. It makes me so happy that I want to go take myself a mushroom cap in Oregon right now.
There you go. I mean, that was a big victory. It's funny, though, because, as far as things went, I saw so many people getting really excited about that. And me personally, I didn't get so excited. And it's not because I don't support it that much, but it's because I'm like, well, of course, it's only a matter of fucking time.
Yeah.
This is just the way it was going to go, and we all knew it was eventually going to go this way.
It made me so happy to see states that 10 years ago, you would have been insane to possess pot in this state because you could go to jail for 10 years.
Yep.
Decriminalizing or legalizing medical marijuana, like Arkansas. Arkansas made medical legal. I mean, I wouldn't have stepped into Arkansas.
Well, let's be honest, man. I went to school in the South, and let me tell you something. Rednecks, they love to smoke.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They really do.
Absolutely, yeah. Why wouldn't they?
how much responsibility do you think South Park has for this?
For what? Through Integrity Farms?
Yeah.
For legalizing marijuana?
Yeah.
I would think it didn't have any significance at that time.
You would hope,
Right?
but you never know.
mean, like, I would be surprised. I never even thought about that. I mean, I would think if it was like a big impact, we would hear more about that. We'd hear more from Matt, from Matt and Trey.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's interesting. It's an interesting thought, but I personally, I would think probably not, because a lot of those states, right? There's those folks don't like South Park.
Oh, that is not true.
Really? It's very critical.
That is not true at all.
Of a lot of.
They hate on everyone on South Park, though. I think that's what they like about it. Yeah.
I know they do, but they seem to kind of point at a lot of the core things that people get emotional about.
I think the genius of Matt and Trey is the fact that their humor, either side, can point to what they love about it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I could agree with that. I love everything about it. I love it when they call out our side, too, because they're fucking right, usually. Except Man Bear Pig. And I'm so glad they came out about that and apologized. I'm so happy about that. They brought him back, and they did like an episode to be like, okay, you were right. We're sorry. That was really cool of them to do.
One other thing I wanted to talk about was a number of states, and I'll have to look up exactly which ones, but have now signed this pact, basically that they will give their electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't kick in until enough states sign it to where it would add up to 270.
I don't know if I like that much, though.
I saw Colorado did it.
What I would prefer is just put it out proportionally, man. Don't give all the electoral votes. Just divide them proportionally.
It's so simple, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people live in each state, no matter which one, and a lot of the demographics are split, especially now. So.
And on that matter, for what a lot of Americans would probably think is a more radical idea, but I think is an intuitive one, we should do the same thing with the 100 Senate seats. We should divide it into 100 equal population constituencies, not by state.
I mean,
that would make sense in a certain in a certain context.
But there's no way. There's no way.
I personally think I'd be fine with the state legislators choosing them like the old days. I know that's more like a controversial opinion, but I'd be okay with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
As long as we trust the state legislators that were elected.
Yeah.
I think the problem with doing a proportional electoral, or trying to fix the electoral college by making it more proportional, is it still limits the voice of a person who is out of agreeing with the state that they're living in.
I disagree because let's say we take California with 55 electoral votes, right? If you break those down, there's plenty of space to pass those out to different Republicans in the state. I think it's a very fair system. And the only states you're looking at where it's like small enough to really be a problem, well, most of those states pretty much vote hard red anyway.
So wait, so you're saying it wouldn't be a winner take all?
No, that's what I have a problem with.
No winner take all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the winner take all thing that they're passing that I don't like that much. Because I'd rather they do it proportionally.
Like Nebraska or like Maine does it.
Literally. Yeah. Except they do it by district instead of...
Which is weird. That's very them. That's very them to do it that way. I think they can just do it based on a proportionality of the vote. Just make
That's how I feel. So if they were to do that, I think that would be really the fairest way to do it.
Definitely.
And it would give some weight to the popular vote, too.
Mm-hmm.
I think the issue of why Colorado would want to do it the way that they're doing it is that would take significant legislative action to change
legislative action to do it this way?
To change it proportionally. rather than doing it by state by state. And a lot of the times when
Well,
an action is,
but like, why are we whining about hard work? We got shit to do.
well, it just depends what's going to be first. I mean, look, they made it where it's not going to kick in unless it becomes a viable option and enough states sign on to it to enact it. Now, for all we know, in the next 4 years, maybe, Congress will get their shit together and they will change.
I think another really important thing about that is like, it takes away a lot of the incentive to just go to certain places. I think it still gives people the incentive to go and fight for those smaller votes, right? Because now you can't just rely on California being 55 votes, and you have to campaign across the state, for example, instead of just in the cities.
Well, one reason I think it's smart, though, as well, is it puts at least some pressure to fix it in some way. Because imagine if states do decide, oh, yeah, we're going to sign on to this. And imagine, if 10, 15 states decide to sign on to this, to say, oh, yeah, we're going to give them the proportional vote. Then Congress will be like, now we have a fire under our feet to actually get something done.
Now with the popular vote thing, they're doing it because that's like 15 states now that have signed on.
Well, yeah, but the more that happens, the more it gets closer to that, especially the Republican side, they're not going to.
I mean, that's how it goes with amendments, because this is something they'd have to change with an amendment.
I feel like the Republican side would like the proportional idea, though. Think of all the electoral
They
votes.
would not
But that's
like
what I'm saying.
popular.
They would like the proportional idea.
That's
They
what
would
I'm
not
saying.
like the
Yeah.
popular idea. So if more states are signing up
Exactly.
for the popular idea, the Republicans are going to go, oh crap, we have to fix this another way.
We need something else. Yeah.
Because they'll lose every election if they don't do that.
It's much fairer. I wish we'd do it that way. Honestly, I know people, they like don't want the popular vote because they say, well, it's not fair or what have you. And I'm just like, well, then maybe you should adjust what your party stands for and appeal to more than just the states that you rely on.
I get that, but at the same time, I do understand why people are gung-ho about the Electoral College, because there is such an ideological difference between rural areas and city areas, and this election has proved that, and our priorities are completely different. And I will say that, like, being a city boy, I'm not going to understand the problems.
I think we need to reshuffle state versus federal jurisdiction, because the landscape is different from 200 years ago. Each state has different problems that it has to deal with. I would like to see us really sit down and take a good look at what states should be able to do on their own and federal should be able to do on their own. I think there's too much power. Believe it or not, I feel like there's too much power on the side of the federal government in some things.
Oh, I think so as well. There's certain things that a state should have control of and certain things that the feds should have control of.
Yep. And so, look, everyone wants to laud the Constitution, which is great. There's a lot of great things in the Constitution. But it was also written like 240 years ago. And as much as we want to argue that, yeah, the principles are strong, that's fine. They literally could not, by definition, account for what life would be like today. They couldn't conceive of the technology and the problems and the things that we have. So it's okay. They built the document. I mean, they allowed for amendments for a reason. And my interpretation of the Constitution is a living, breathing document. And I think that's what they wanted, because to insinuate that things are just going to be the same, I think is not valuable.
Well, I think one of the more impressive things about the U.S. Constitution is how broad the language is, and I think that is the brilliance of the founders,
right?
In that they knew society would change, but they wanted these laws and standards to be applicable to that change.
Right, and that's what I think is is a problem for me with certain originalists is I think they don't often try to take that into account as much as they should.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably consider. I'm more on the side of originalist than revisionist. That's for sure.
I
But
mean,
at the same,
I'm clearly, obviously, a revisionist.
yeah, no, and that's fine. I understand that legal perspective 100%.
As I understand yours too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I understand the originalist perspective. The Constitution has guided us in a lot of great ways, and that's important.
Yeah.
You know, something new and it was different. But there have been a lot of other constitutions written since then by other countries that include a lot more than ours does.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Well, there's also been state constitutions that have different ideas.
But there's certain things, you know, and state constitutions are important too.
Yeah.
But there's certain things that I think it's too dangerous to leave up to the states. I think there are certain things you need to do on a federal level.
I think so too, but I think most things I lean 10th Amendment on. I think most regulations I think can be left to states.
Yeah, I think it depends on the regulation, right? I think right now, and yes, you know what? Economic issues be damned. I think we need strong environmental regulation.
Sure.
It's an urgent issue. Now, let's make it as economic as we possibly can. But we're going to have to spend money on it. That's how infrastructure projects work. That's how you create jobs. That's how you do that. And that's how you get rid of the debt that you spent on doing it in the first place. And so we need to be open to those big, bring us together public projects again, like we used to. Because those are the ones that prop up the middle class, right? Those are the ones that pump money back into the economy in that circular way. We're taking tax money to pay those employees who now can go and buy all of these products and so on. I mean, we all know basic economics. So I think environmental programs, rebuilding infrastructure with an environmental approach in mind, is a really, really, really great way to jumpstart the economy and get a lot of people working with good paying jobs.
I mean,
so something like that I would like to be done on a federal level. Now, details about it, certain details may change from state to state. That makes sense, right? But I think overarching, we need sort of a general countrywide plan to make sure that everybody's pitching in and doing what they can, because we know, unfortunately, certain states would prefer to do nothing.
Well, what do you think, though, also about making it more of a normal thing for just a few states to work together rather than having it be individual? So, for instance, like how...
Am I hearing some Cascadia talk here right now?
Well, in a sense, yeah. So think about like how they had that Western States Pact for COVID-19. Yeah. So like California, Oregon, Washington, and it was like Nevada and a couple other states.
I think so. Yeah.
Worked together to create certain standards for how their states were going to tackle this virus. Now that's one good thing, just temporarily.
I agree with that as a general theoretical concept in a lot of situations, but not when it comes to the environment. I think we need...
I know, not when it comes to the environment, but for certain things, and infrastructure could be part of it. Like if you're gonna make infrastructure that connects, you know, California, Oregon, and Washington, and is a coastal thing,
then we can deal with that.
Yeah, then why don't those 3 states deal with it, and the rest of the states don't have to worry about that?
Those are the kinds of details that I'm talking about. The details that I think would need to be handled federally are like the base standards, right? Like your emission quality standards, your power generation standards, things like that. I think should be handled federally, and then the details of how you go about that, how you distribute funds, where you put that into, from, you know, whatever federal funds you're receiving or your own state funds that you're using. Absolutely, that should be something dealt with by the states. You don't want bureaucratic sort of traffic building up over something like that, or nothing's going to get done.
A portion of that where it becomes a problem though as well is in like, obviously climate change has caused like natural disasters. We've had more crazy large storms, more fires in California and up the entire West Coast. There's been huge environmental impact by it, and I think leaving the states to their own, it's like, why are we part of a union if we're not going to help each other out in that sort of sense,
Which is why I think it's important. If we have those federal standards, we know at least they are doing a certain level to ensure that we're all pitching it.
A common denominator.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, this is just like, the only thing we're saying federally is this is how much money you're all going to get from us. And this is the basic lowest level that you need to complete. Aside from that, you can do whatever you need to as long as it's spent on these programs and this infrastructure and stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of that was a lot of how the New Deal worked.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of similarities between that and the type of legislation I'm thinking of.
Biden is kind of trying to position himself as an echo of FDR too. So if that's, the kind of thing that he
I would love to see that, but I don't think anyone's ever going to do FDR. At least not in my mind.
Those were desperate times.
Those were desperate times, number one. And to me, he's the most progressive president we've ever had.
In a sense.
In what he was willing to do, essentially. Right? He was essentially willing to say, we're going to introduce all these new things and make them law to support the people. I mean, he did, his policies were socialist. There's no denying that.
I mean, we got Social Security out of it.
Yeah, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the job, unemployment. These are all socialist programs.
I would call them more Keynesian programs than anything.
Well, however you want to call it.
Yeah, that's what there was socialism in there, but I would mostly call, he worked alongside Keynes. They worked hand in hand together.
Sure. I mean, there's components of it that are not socialist. We have to generate capital through taxation, which I don't know if that's necessarily true socialism. It's like a variation on it, taxation in itself. But the idea of collective funds or resources being used for the betterment of all, I mean, that's the basis of what democratic socialism is founded on. So that's why I kind of see him in that light personally.
Sure.
And I understand there's a lot of different views on that. And that's fine. I don't really give a shit. That's everybody's own opinion, just like it's my opinion. Because that is more of an opinionated and non-factual thing. But I don't think we could ever have the kind of unity we used to have. We can definitely do better than we have done. But I don't think we're ever going to get back to an America where everyone holds hands and loves the country.
I don't know, man. It could happen. And it wasn't like, there was a brief period of time in the early 2000s where we did.
But it was fake.
It was because they gave flags to everyone.
Yeah, it was because they gave flags to everyone and a big disaster happened. But a big disaster is happening right now, and it's a lot bigger than that one. And yet we're not.
We don't have an enemy to rally around, That's the difference. I mean, the enemy is...
we don't have a human enemy.
No, I was going to say the enemy's in microbiology. That's
right.
It's a little harder to, amp people up to go to war.
Ridiculous to me, because that's the type of thing that should bring people together. It's when it's not another human.
You'd think.
It's when we as humans can combine together against another thing that it should be bringing us together. But
I think that the number one thing that Biden needs to focus on is retooling our education system. It's the only thing that's going to bring people back together.
You should just do 12 years of teaching logic and critical thought. That's all you need to do.
Well, just encouraging people that education is important again, right?
But it is only to a certain extent. First of all, we need public higher education. I'm sorry. We need it. This idea that you have to go into debt to maybe get a job to get out of that debt and then that's your life, that's not okay.
I mean, if I were helping create his platform, aside from the environment, which needs to be dealt with immediately, education, I think, is the other thing that needs to be.
Obama ran on education reform. I think we'll see a lot of education reform work from Biden.
It all depends on Congress as well. But the thing is, like, we've obviously seen a fundamental lack of education and lack of trust in expertise the last 4 years, and a mistrust of real information, right? So like it's been 4 years where people are like, what you're showing me is fake. I have this information. I didn't do any critical thought on it, but I saw this on Facebook and my friends posted it 10 times. So this must be true. So it's like a lot of it is just a lack of critical thinking. It needs to be taught in schools. But a lot of critical thinking isn't taught in school until after you're in high school.
And even then
it depends.
Yeah. I think, and personally, in my opinion, elementary school should be where you're learning critical thinking and logic.
Absolutely.
Like, it should be that early, and then you get into the more theoretical stuff as you get older. Mm-hmm. But you should be teaching the basics of all the basic logical precepts to children.
That has to be taught to children. I think navigating the world that has information
how to do
at your tips needs to be taught in school. How to navigate,
how to do fucking taxes,
how to do taxes, and even technical schools.
The arts. We need more of the arts. We need more physical education. I mean, everything. Every aspect of school needs to be improved.
Mm-hmm.
I think there also is an overemphasis though on STEM careers that people are never going to go into.
Yeah.
So until we take that emphasis off of it, because obviously those things are important, and we are going to have people that want to do that.
Do you know how it is in Argentina? So in Argentina, when you go into high school, you pick a major. Hello.
Yeah.
And then so when you get ready, by the time you're going to college, you're starting your specialization already.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not spending those years on things that, only things that may not be useful to you. They still teach you math and science because it is important to know math and science, right? But they're not doing it in a way where it's like, those are the most important things you're learning, because that might not be your career.
It probably won't be.
And it probably won't be, unless you're probably like me.
A lot of
congratulations to you, Jordan.
I mean, everything we just said, I think, needs to be just brought up the next 4 years. It needs to.
There's a lot. There's a lot of work to do.
So my biggest concern about the Biden administration is I don't want to see the U.S. return to a Bush/Obama war in the Middle East constantly administered.
I think they've heard enough about that to know that that's not what the American people want.
I hope so. I really hope so.
And let's be honest here. Let's not put the layers on top of it and cut down to through the fucking bullshit as to why those wars started, and understand that Biden announcing that he wants to be all electric by 2030 means that there's going to be less incentive for that in general.
Sure. Yeah, that does cut out the oil side of it for the energy need to occupy those countries.
Those are really the only real reasons that were there.
That is one of the main reasons for sure, absolutely. But there also is this American need that's developed. Like we need to liberate these countries, and
Oh no 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 no
I don't
no
want to
no.
see a return to that
That's a
mentality.
mirage, my friend.
It
That is
may
an
be,
That's an
maybe.
excuse they use to do this stuff. I've
To-
seen it so many times.
I
I'm
must
not
say,
just here. I've seen it in other countries. It's classic tactic.
sure. And I must say, the greatest, I don't even want to call it an achievement, but factor to have come out of the Trump presidency, we have not gotten in any new major wars in the Middle East under
Well,
his
Malcolm and I were actually having a conversation about
Yeah.
that, and we were wondering if it was because of COVID that we didn't end up getting into it, because we were about to have a
with
conflict
Iran.
with
Maybe.
Iran.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's a good point, and maybe. But I mean, I wish he would have ended the old ones too, obviously. But
Well,
yeah,
he took us mostly out of Afghanistan, right?
yeah. No, we still have boots on the ground there.
Well,
But
there's always going to be boots on the ground there for a long time. We still have boots
Sure.
on the ground in Vietnam,
Germany, we still have
Korea.
Germany. Just in case those Nazis rise from the dead, right? But yeah.
Yeah, but when they rise in our own country, it's all fucking hunky dory.
Right. Yeah. Maybe we should look at that a little more, if anything. Yeah. But no. Yeah. That's my biggest concern, and it's not a huge concern, but I do not want to see us go back to the Middle East police. I have
I
no
really
interest
don't
in ever seeing that
either.
again.
I'm not. The Middle East needs to. It's such a fucking clusterfuck, dude. They need to
And it's
stop.
partially our fault that it's such a clusterfuck.
Partially.
It is mostly our fault that it's such a clusterfuck.
Bro, since like the 50s, we've been
Mhm.
fucking them up, and they were in good shape too.
They were on their
doing
way up.
well.
It's the sad thing. They were on the way up. Yeah.
We helped like these religious leaders get into power.
Because we thought at the time that it would be beneficial to U.S. interests. It wasn't in the long run. Let's put that first on the list. It was not beneficial to U.S.
Well, because
interests.
they're pissed at us and fucking surprised,
Mhm.
right? Like, of
Mhm.
course they are, and they deserve to be.
Yep.
Can we take our hands out of everyone else's fucking cookie jars, for God's sake?
That'd be great. Yeah.
You know, that's something that libertarians and progressives vehemently agree on.
Oh, 100%.
We are so non-interventionist. But it's not like we're 100% non-interventionist, right? We're non-interventionist except when the cause truly is just, when we are asked for help, you know, and we provide
yeah.
it.
No, I mean, like, the common historical viewpoint now is that the U.S. waited too long to involve itself in World War II, for instance.
Yeah, but we're overcompensating, like with a dude when
Right.
a dude with a small dick buys a Hummer. You know, like that is what we're doing right now. We
like
bought that Hummer, we're driving it around, man.
Mhm.
And not only are we driving it around, but we're like waiting too long to hit the gas pedal after it changes green. Like, just being really annoying drivers to everyone else on the road.
It really, like, speaking of Matt Stone and Trey Parker, I think Team America described the late 20th and early 21st foreign policy of the United States so well in the beginning of Team America. You know,
film was
Paris is burning down, and then Team America's there. We saved France again. And it's too good.
It's just, you know, I think a lot of the country is waking up to it, right? I find it very funny that the conservative wing of the conservative wing of the country suddenly decided that they don't like war anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when did that happen?
You know, it actually, I think a lot of the credit goes to the Ron Paul movement, whether they realize it or not. I think he kind of started a web there among conservative thinkers, and it branched out. And it also became a really solid opposition point to the Obama administration.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
They were happy to use that just to, you know, oppose him in any way they possibly could.
Military fetishization continues.
Yes.
That has.
By the way, one of these days I got to tell you about my perspective Benghazi as a son of diplomats who was raised overseas and who lived through a coup in a country and lockdowns and multiple embassies and things
Interesting.
like that.
I would like to hear that. Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds like an interesting perspective.
Because I'll give you a preview. That was a load of horseshit.
Mm.
That investigation they knew was going to be horseshit, and
Yeah.
they did it anyway. It was a
Right.
dog and pony show.
Well, I think we're going to wrap up, but we might
Yeah.
do that next time.
That'd
Next
be
time.
fun.
Yeah.
We'll do our throwback episode.
Hey. Now that Trump has lost, it feels like we have to do so much more work to come up with things.
Not at all. Now we're
If I am on the next
to
one,
talk about the interesting shit instead of just how much this guy pisses us off.
Well, I would like to, probably not this time because we're wrapping up here, but the allegations of fraud coming from certain sects of the Trump wing and Republican Party would be an interesting topic of conversation to go over at some point.
Just a hard hour-long debunking of all of that crap.
And debunking and addressing people's concerns. There are people concerned about the integrity of our democracy, and I think it's important to shed light on what's going on there.
I find that really interesting because to me, what we saw gave me faith again in our voting system.
In a lot of ways, I agree. In a lot of ways, I actually do agree.
I think we showed that we can stand up to that kind of interference, and that was really cool.
I think because this is happening right now as we're recording this, and I don't think it's up in the air. Like, it's obvious where the country is going. But I do want to see how this plays out legally. Like,
me too.
It's not going to play out well for the president.
Oh, I have no doubt. But I just want to wait to see how it actually...
A couple cases could get close. A couple cases... See, here's the thing.
But
2 or 3 cases...
That's the problem.
That is the thing. He could turn 2 states back red and he'd still lose. That's the crazy thing about it. I mean, and he probably won't. But
it's like, well, I would be very surprised if he turned a state at all, let alone even got these cases like.
Oh man, with Rudy Giuliani arguing the case for you? Are you kidding me?
As long as you get up to the Supreme Court, I mean, the Supreme Court has already given his hint as to how they're going to treat these lawsuits.
Yeah.
And it was not favorable. So if he goes up to the Supreme Court, he got a little, here's a bone to you to keep you quiet from Alito. But if he brings it up again and they hear it, Roberts is going to take it on and he's going to smack it down.
Yeah. Well, no, Roberts will smack it down. And I mean, Gorsuch and Alito, I think the main reason that they ordered those ballots that came in after Election Day to be separated
just in case.
It's the opposite of what the Trump people think. I think they had those separated so they could show there's nothing non-legitimate about these votes. I think they were being smart there.
And I would love to hear this, but I don't think we're going to get it. But I'd love to hear an opinion from Amy Coney Barrett on this.
It'll be interesting to see how she's going to be ruling on that court.
But I
think,
years, but I think the justices, both the liberal and conservative, understand the situation and know the kind of pressure that she's going to be in as a new judge, and I think they're probably going to give her a break on that. And I'm not 100% against that. Now that we know what's happening and who's president, I feel less worried about Roe v. Wade or the what was the name of the case? The LGBTQ case? Oberfeld or something like that.
That sounds right.
Anyway,
I should know that.
Like
I really
should know that.
I'm
saying it wrong off the top of my head. But I don't think we're going to see too much on those now that Biden is president-elect.
Well, we'll see. Yeah.
I don't think they're going to want to jump into this new administration going to war. And when we get to January, I don't think the Republican Congress is going to want to do that either. Now, you never know with Mitch McConnell, right? But he got his conservative majority. So now he should be ready to work.
He hasn't yet, though, because it depends on Georgia.
It might be split. It might end up being a complete split with Kamala Harris as the leader of the Senate and the swing vote. That would be.
I think Georgia's. I think they're both going to go red, or they're both going to go blue.
I think they're
more
both
likely. They're both more likely to go red.
Okay.
But the fact that there is a runoff election tells me that there's going to be no like crazy shenanigans.
Unless Stacey Abrams can get on the ground and get everyone in Atlanta to go and vote.
Well, that's what they want to avoid, and that's why Republicans will probably not do anything drastic until January 20th, because they want to avoid mobilizing
Right.
liberals in Georgia. So
Yeah, but they can't control the president.
they can't for the most part. But
Not at all at this point.
He's on his own now, man. That cowboy's riding off into the Wild West, both guns loaded. Yeah, I hear his own staff, his own cabinet members, his inner circle are like, hey, it's time
beyond
to start
that.
walking this back. And
Melania, Jared, and Ivanka now are telling him to leave it. And then Eric and Don Jr. are fighting with them about it.
Well, how is that surprising? Yeah.
This is. You ever watch Succession?
Mm-mm.
It's a good show. You should watch it. It won a bunch of Emmys. It very much reminds me of that show. It's about a media magnate and his family and who's going to take over the company next. And
I will definitely check it out. Yeah,
it's good. I think it won Best Drama this year.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's on HBO.
it is.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Well,
Highly recommend it.
I think we'll leave it at that. Everyone go watch Succession over the next week.
I'm going to go watch John
See how the
Oliver right
real
now.
life
I want to hear what that
Succession
motherfucker has to say.
Yes, John Oliver. You know what? I'm probably going to go watch The Mandalorian actually right now.
All right, we all got shows
Go
to watch.
for
So.
Yeah, we do.
Let's
Good
get
night,
on it.
everyone.
Thanks for having me
Everybody-
on again, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
I'm sure we're going to keep having you come back, man.
Beautiful. I love it.
Before long, if you're interested, I'm sure you'll be a weekly regular. So
Excellent. No, that would be awesome. I would appreciate that.
because I'm enjoying the discourse, and I'm sure you guys are enjoying the discourse. So.
Absolutely. Oh, definitely. 100%.
So yeah, it's gonna be fun next week. Everybody, you can finally breathe now. So
Rest
enjoy
up.
that. Have sleep would be nice.
Republicans, let me just say to you out there, Republicans, this is an opportunity to become more libertarian. It's the natural evolution.
And let me say this to Republicans: I love you. Come and give me a hug, man. I'm sorry you went through all this shit.
But maintain social distance.
I don't. Well, let's maintain social distance, but I don't. The past is the past. I don't want to dwell on the Trump presidency. We all want to move forward.
Moving
Agreed.
forward.
Indeed.
Here.
All right.
Later,
Good night,
y'all.
everybody.